now I want to call Mr. Joe Mohan. He will talk about the little study done that what is the next 10 years looks like for this environment and everything. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Nizami, for the wonderful opener. And today we are talking about investment opportunities between India and UAE. And like Mr. Anup was mentioning, the theme is revolving around UAE in India, or India in UAE. So it's a two-way street that we're talking about, right? My name is Joe, and I would be sharing with you a few data points which might reflect on the objectives that you have in being here today, with the investment as the outcome. And again, like IBMC's platform that provides you an end-to-end solution. So when we talk about an end-to-end solution, we are talking about a disruption. And that's a word which is actually causing a lot of waves to go around the world. And disruptive innovation is what eventually we all would end up doing. So I would keep it brief. I would not take more than 10 minutes. We'll just quickly go through and glide through certain slides here, which will give you a clarity on what are those disruptive innovations that's possible and investments that investors could look forward to, especially in India. But I'll be talking about a global landscape, but we would be able to easily relate that to Indian market. Envisioned and forecasted by Dr. Sahid, who is the chairman of Institute of Research and Policy Studies based in New Delhi, but we have a presence here in Sharjah itself. And Genius Group Global is the venture that we are from. And my name is Joe. I am heading the research and development. I'm also the executive director of the board. Moving on to what do we talk about when we say global disruption. The word disruption is actually coined by Clayton Christensen, a Harvard professor, long time back, 1995. He wrote a book called Innovator's Dilemma. So when he mentioned the word disruption, it was not really taken in the positive manner, in the beginning though, because people thought about it as a negative. However, every disruption is an address to or a solution to a threat. So whenever you're talking about threats, there's always an opportunity. So like Dr. Nizami was just mentioning right now, that focus on where you want to be, not on your fears. So if the threat is the fear, where we want to be is the opportunity. And that's precisely what IBMC is doing. And I would like to thank Mr. Sahid and also the team, Mr. Anup, the core team of IBMC, who've actually created this wonderful platform here to bring all of you on the same page and bridge it further. So let's move on. Let's talk about energy for a while. Fracking technology has actually lowered the cost of oil in such a manner that it's in reality now possible to actually supply as per the demands all over the world. Earlier it was not happening so. Now, if you look at the Paris summit, which just happened recently, CO2 emission was addressed as one of the problems, which means by 2020, if we do not try to bring down CO2 or emissions of carbon, it would create a very bad or adverse effect on a very large population of 2 billion humans. If you look at the renewable energy, that is what is getting more popular today. So it's no longer fossil fuels. If you look at the title, it's fossil fuels to data economy. So we were living in an energy-intensive economy, and now we're moving on to a renewable energy-driven data economy, which is no longer depending on energy. So when you look at oil per se, we are sitting in GCC, in UAE, which is known to produce oil. But the leadership of this nation is actually looking at having an economy which is 0% dependent on oil. And that's the future that we're looking at. So energy in itself has been disrupted. Let's look at the next one here. When we talk about automobiles, the largest employer in the world is actually the automobile sector, automotives. So 2 billion people approximately are employed all around the world. We're talking about global disruption in automotive. Now, Dubai has taken the leadership of introducing air drones, taxis, air taxis. In July, I believe, it's going to be seen flying in the air. Moving on to hyperloops, which is actually a beautiful technology called evacuated tube transport technology, which is already underway in UAE, is another example of disruption. But UAE has taken leadership in bringing a solution for that, utilizing that T3 technology. It says when this technology is fully implemented, from US to Taj Mahal, which is UP, India, can be covered in 3 hours just for about $50. That's disruption. Again, so when we look at investment opportunities, we need to look at an opportunity at a larger scale, not just very specific or pinpointed, because the entire world is being disrupted. And precisely IBMC's event here, the 10-month campaign, is going to focus on the 12 sectors. I'm not going to be touching on all the 12 sectors, but I'll be just pointing out a few of these more. Moving on to banking, a blockchain is taking over the disruption because that's the new thing today. In fact, recently, Commercial Bank of Dubai just launched their first digital bank, which is again disruption in banking. So we no longer would actually need brick and mortar banking anymore. Bill Gates says that banks are no longer needed, but banking is definitely needed. So banking can be achieved through technology called blockchain. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, peer-to-peer transactions, and various other digital payments actually are replacing what we used to do earlier. Moving on to manufacturing and automation. This is where, again, a lot of buzz or a lot of chatter has been there globally. Because Tesla, as we all know, has created robots, which now creates robots. And in other words, it's automating jobs. So it's a threat to human beings because there would be a lot of loss of jobs. But at the same time, it is creating new opportunities. How do we bridge the gap between the opportunities, and how do we get the investors to actually find out the real sectors where the investments are needed? Moving on to 3D printing, that's again creating a lot of waves. And soon we will have examples of 3D printing in India as well. And if I'm not wrong, there are certain projects in UAE which are currently being handled in the 3D printing space. China is actually known for constructing a 7-story building. And it's a beautiful thing, the way 3D printed cars are running on the roads. Strati is a company which has actually successfully launched their first 3D printed car. It's beautiful. So disruption has brought in new opportunities. Moving on to supply chain. That's where platformization. I would like to halt here for a while, because B2B portal of IBMC, which Mr. Anup just spoke about initially, is also platformization in a way if you look at it. Because there's no longer a need for you as an investor or a person who's looking to invest into Indian markets to go all the way, travel there, or vice versa, because it's already platformized. And B2B portal is actually giving that platform where investors and the innovators can connect together. Industry experts can connect together on that platform. Similarly, when we talk about supply chain, that's again been platformized. We can't think of a world now without Google or Facebook or WhatsApp or things like that, because we are so used to it now. What has actually been done is that our simple lives have been platformized. So what it gives birth to is data. And that's where I'm getting to. So when the whole world is being disrupted, we are actually generating yottabytes of data. Every nanosecond of our lives, we're generating data. And that data is the most powerful thing in the world, which is going to rule, control, and run the world. So investors also should be careful of taking that into consideration, because the world is moving on to a data economy from being an energy-intensive economy globally. Moving on to health sciences, life sciences, medical, healthcare. A lot of innovation happening there, a lot of disruption that has happened there too, because now it says that children can live up to the age of 100. Thanks to nanomedicines, DNA-based re-engineering, and various other things. Organ printing is another thing which is very much in chatter now. 3D organ printing. So no longer there's a need to actually transplant organs. So people won't really die of waiting for a transplant of kidney. for example, because it can be printed. It sounds crazy, but that's a fact. That's where the world is moving on. And it's happening already as we speak. So 3D printing, not just in construction, but 3D printing in life sciences also. So that's, again, disruption for you. Moving on from there, we're talking about education. Now, that's one area which a lot of us would probably not really focus much on. But the fact is that education is very much needed in the context of two things. One is in the context of people losing their jobs. World Bank report in 2016 says that 80% of the world population will be losing jobs because of automation. And as you can see right there, I don't know if you can actually look at the figures there. Nigeria, 65%. US, 47%. China, 77% of China is going to lose jobs. India is right there at 69%, is losing jobs because of automation. So this is where Prime Minister Narendra Modi's mission of Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, all of this gets aligned, and it becomes even more relevant that we need to find innovative ways to tackle disruption globally as well as India and convert all those threats to opportunities of investments. And by the end of this event today, you'd be getting to hear about 12 sectors, and then you can connect with each of the opportunities, and I think that's the way to go ahead. Quickly, I'll run through the 8 predictions of the world by 2030. Very interesting one, because the World Economic Forum says that very soon you'll be happy not to own anything, because all the products are going to be converted to services. And that world is not far away. It's not really, I have said 10 years, but it's actually not even 10 years. And a couple of weeks back, we were listening to a speech done by another scientist who says the world was talking about reaching Mars and habitating Mars in the next 30 to 50 years. But guess what? SpaceX, Elon Musk, has disrupted that too. And Elon Musk has been welcomed to UAE to give a speech on this in the World Government Summit that just happened. And Dr. Gargawi was grilling him on this point of how crazy the disruption really is. So moving on from that, US dominance is over because we have a handful of powers actually. Third one here is that you will not die waiting for an organ. We have already touched upon that because of 3D printing. Things are now possible. We can print an organ. We'll be eating much lesser meat. I mean, that's also one of the predictions. If you look at climatic conditions, global warming, as we say, climate conditions. Again, Paris Summit was all about that. So in Paris Summit, Elon Musk very clearly says that 97% of the people in the world, or scientists in the world, are actually accepting to the fact that if we do not take actions to curb the carbon emissions or CO2 emissions into the air, into the environment, about 1.5 to 2 billion people from the earth will be wiped out. Now that's very, very, very bad news, because that can really change the world. 1.5 to 2 billion people getting wiped off because of CO2 emissions, that's bad news. So that's disrupting right there. Polluters may have to pay to emit CO2s. Preparing to move to Mars very soon, that's also happening. Like we discussed, Western values have to be tested beyond the breaking points. So these are just of the a couple of points in terms of what is disruption. So we were talking about 360-degree of disruption. So everything that we hear, do, feel, own today is being disrupted as we speak. So, and the world is changing at a faster rate than we can actually imagine. We're entering data economy, because when everything gets converted to services and it's technology which is lying at the back end of all of that, what's being generated is a set of unlimited data points. Data points means data economy. How it is used is very interesting. A quick question to you all. Gmail, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and so on. What has each one of these services actually given to us? They have not given us information. They have used us for information. So in one word, what they've given us is online identity. A virtual identity. Today, your WhatsApp is your identity. Today, the Facebook that we have is our identity. Whether we like it or not, Fact is, the technology natives who are being born today, they love it because that's all they know. But technology migrants, which is I think everyone who is sitting over here, we are yet to agree to that fact completely. But technology aliens like my father and beyond, that category or that generation would not even accept this. But the fact is this, because they have taken over our lives and given us an online identity and said, well, rest of the life you will generate data points which we will use, because they are using our behavioral data. Everything that you send or transmit through your phones and your accounts is actually being used, because that's your behavioral data, and that's being sold to companies like these. It's not a bad thing. I'm not talking about it as a negative aspect, but that's a fact. So if we don't look at it as a fact, we would not realize that this is the data economy. We are already sitting right in the middle of it. So data economy is going to govern the world, not just the oil part of it. So when we're looking at innovative ideas, let's be really disruptive and look at all the sectors. And trust me, all the sectors is connected to data economy. Again, European Commission talks about data, says about 40,000 exabytes of data would be generated in the years to come, very soon. If you look at education, even that market has been disrupted so massively. It used to be just about a $4.5 trillion industry globally, education. But today it is $6.4 trillion industry because of technology getting infused into education. That's why now the brick and mortar institutions like colleges and universities are being replaced. Even Harvard, Stanford, or any of these are actually doing that. Okay, so we're moving on to this one. This is the last part of it, which talks about internet businesses, the biggest internet businesses in 2030 being education business. So that's one of the things. So basically, we have entered data economy, and my objective of presenting this was to bring this to your notice. If you would like to discuss with us more in detail, please feel free to meet our team. We'll be right there. And we would have a detailed discussion. Once again, this is a great platform that Mr. Sahid and Mr. Anup has put together in IBMC. And we want to thank Dr. Tariq Nizami for giving us this platform as well to share our thoughts on global disruption. So thank you very much. If I have exceeded my time, I beg your
I'm going to be very strict henceforth.
Right. So thank you very much. And
wonderful, wonderful, Joe. That was very, very insightful. You could write a book. We'll definitely catch you during the networking. And Dr. Tariq Ahmed Nizami, you are certainly driven by a passion to